Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America, we bring the resource to you. The DU Podcast with your host, Chris Jennings.
We've got the duck numbers. 2019 waterfowl population status has been released by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Always an exciting time of year, especially here at Ducks Unlimited. Today I've got Dr. Tom Moorman, Ducks Unlimited's Chief Scientist, and Dr. Mike Brasher, Chief Waterfowl Scientist here at National Headquarters. Tom, one thing before we get started and really dive into the numbers, you mentioned that you'd like to give a special thanks to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and partners and separate agencies who do all the legwork for this survey. Kind of explain to people what all this survey entails.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Fish and Wildlife Service deserves a lot of credit here. This is a survey that's been done since 1955. Haven't missed a year since. It is extensive, covering most of the Dakotas, most of the important parts of Canada, and parts of Alaska. It requires an amazing amount of effort in a relatively short period of time. It has to start after the birds arrive, and it has to be completed before the birds really get progressed into the nesting season, where they become difficult to count. And so the Fish and Wildlife Service has pilot biologists and or some contract pilots, and a bunch of biologists join them and fly these surveys inside of about a month. If you look at the report, it's about 170 individual biologists who contribute information to it. The Fish and Wildlife Service coordinates all that information, and within about 2 months produces a remarkable report with an amount of detail that is really, there's no compare. I mean, this survey has, as I said, the longest running time span, probably provides the best population management for any group of wildlife in the world.
Wow.
So we give great credit to the service, their partners, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Canadian Wildlife Service. Lots of state waterfowl biologists participate, even some tribal biologists. And it's just a really remarkable survey that provides the baseline information on which North American waterfowl populations are managed. It informs harvest and regulations, and so hunters, kind of need to appreciate that and give credit where credit is due to the service for pulling this thing off on an annual basis.
Absolutely. It's quite the undertaking. And Mike, you kind of mentioned something about the expectations. I look at this as a duck hunter. I get fired up when the duck numbers come out, but I, spending enough time with biologists and you guys, I know not to set my expectations. There are some hunters out there who prefer to try and get excited about this, but what exactly is this survey for, and what does it mean?
Yeah, well, Chris, again, thanks for having me on here. And as you started off with, this is an exciting time of year. Hunters do look forward to this. Other folks look forward to this report too. And Tom did reference it is a truly impressive collection of data, unparalleled anywhere in the world. And while all of that information is really, it generates a lot of buzz among hunters, I think the most important thing to realize is the primary purpose of this information is to inform harvest, as well as to allow us to continually assess the status of these populations and the status of their habitats to ensure that the management that we're doing on the ground, as well as the harvest regulations that are formulated, are appropriate for the status of the populations. And so yes, it is natural to expect that hunters will look to this, because it does give some index to the potential for production of ducks in a given year. And that each hunter is probably going to have some way that they look forward to the hunting season and try to imagine the success they're going to have, or the opportunity for success.
Absolutely.
And so
duck
this
hunters,
is one. That's right. This is just one part of it. There's a whole host of things that play a role in what they will actually see later in the year. And then once you start talking about the hunting success, there's a whole host of other reasons that come into play there. So it's good to get excited about this, but it is important to remember its primary purpose.
Be the first to know when ducks are on the move. Sign up for DU's waterfowl migration email alerts and receive ongoing in-depth updates on the latest habitat conditions, weather changes, and hunting reports for your flyway. Visit ducks.org/migration alerts.
I think, it's important for hunters to remember also that regardless of what the population estimate is, it could be a boom year where we have, record populations, or it could be a bust year. And I'm old enough to remember some bust years in the late 80s. Still go hunting, and whether the population's high or low, that doesn't necessarily equate to hunting success in your region. That's more driven by weather and birds making migrations or not. It's driven by local habitat and regional habitat conditions, too much water, too little water, lots of food, not enough food, all those kinds of things. And so, yeah, it's exciting, and I'm like everybody else. It's like Christmas Day when that thing comes out, but it does not necessarily equate to hunting success.
Yeah.
You can have a great year of hunting when populations are low. Now, bag limits might be a little less, but you can still have a great year.
And there's so many variables involved in
Tons.
I mean, everything from weather to habitat, it's all across the board. And absolutely, we're going to touch on that here coming up in the next few podcasts. But I appreciate you guys joining me today. We're going to wrap this one up. And for anyone looking for more information, you can visit ducks.org/duck numbers. You can get the full report, full chart, and everything. But join us for the next show, and we will go through each species, pond counts. We're going to wrap it all up. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the DU Podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit www.ducks.org/DU Podcast for resources based on today's topics, as well as access to more episodes. Until next time, stay tuned to the Ducks.